against TCU, and the most complete game we've had in all three phases. We kind of put it together all three phases and played good, and the crowd was fantastic, and so things started to work to our advantage, and snowball kind of started going downhill on TCU when everything started working, the crowd got into it, and so on and so forth. So, on to Tech now, and, we're just a normal game routine. So same old, just need to have a good week of practice and make sure we're focused and understand what got us to this point and what we need to do to move forward. And it's really that simple of a process. In fact, don't get out of our box and kind of understand who we are and not necessarily listen to people tell them how good they are, and have a good week of practice, work hard, and get ready to go out and play Saturday night.
Staying in your box, is that the key to keeping the momentum going?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty good idea of who we are now and in all three phases, and so not try to do something that we're not capable of, but also make sure that we're stressing the important areas that continue for us to get better each game. I mean, a sign of a good football team and a sign of a well-coached football team is a team that gets better each week. And I feel like that we've improved each week. I'm happy with that part of our program this year, and so we just need to continue in that path.
It seems like the last 4 weeks you've gotten teams coming off their best game. You've had Kansas pushed OU, you've had TCU beat Baylor, now Tech beats Iowa State. Is that beneficial for you guys to have teams play that well ahead of you to help prepare?
Oh, it could be from the, with the players, there's so much going on and there's so many things, so much information out there with phones and technology that maybe they see them play well and then, okay, I need to practice hard. But they're still young people. They're 19, 20, 21, so they need to be motivated, mentally charged, and I would think that could help. We tell them that every week, and I've said this from week one on, that we're not a good enough football team to not practice well and beat somebody on Saturday, period. So I've told them that. And if when Brandon Whedon was here and that team, I didn't tell them that because we were a good enough team. We could not play well and still win. So I've told them the truth, but if they see teams play well on tape, maybe it does benefit them.
What does it do for you as a coach when you see that too? Do you look at that and just kind of shake your head like, here's another team that's got hot again all of a sudden?
They played another quarterback, and he played well, and they were physical against Iowa State and scored points. And so, I mean, we just have to, as I said when I started, do what we do, stay in our box and practice well and focus and compete.
Mike, you mentioned it to the team again afterwards on Saturday about the process they went through last spring and even in fall camp of so many reps for so many different players. As a coach, you and your staff had to make a conscious decision to do that. You said it was out of COVID concerns. When you look in the mirror now, you say, wow, I was pretty smart on that move. I mean, it worked out.
Well, we learned a lot of things from COVID, a lot of things that we use internally in our organization, and then also things in practices. And so when we have players that are injured and other players step in and play, they've had a considerable more amount of reps than they've ever had in the past. So, we get guys banged up in the game, and we find out tomorrow, practice-wise, where they're at. Some of them can go, some of them can't. The ones that can't go, the ones that have stepped in and had to play so far have played pretty well, and I'm convinced it's because of all the work they got starting a year ago during the COVID issues. Then obviously we kept it going in the spring and in August, and I think it's made us a better football team.
How did it look on tape when you had a chance to look at Williams and Tyrese and Mahalski? And
those guys played good. They were physical, and they made mistakes. I mentioned to you after the game that Tyrese threw a couple no-hitters, but there's other guys that do that. But we've asked them to be physical and play hard and give the backs a chance to get a yard past the line of scrimmage before they have to make a cut, and that's what they did. They were finishing blocks, and so if they will compete and give us that side of it, then we'll be fine.
Do you anticipate getting those two starting linemen back this week?
I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow.
Coach, you mentioned those younger guys that got all those reps. How integral have they been for this offense that's kind of starting to find its stride?
Well, they're an important part, which a question Robert asked, and so we have gone a number of weeks where we had our offensive line was settled, and then we lost that last week. And we, particularly in the second half, we had 40% of our offensive line was new guys again. So if we can't get the guys that are injured back in, then we're back in that same boat where we're moving guys around a little bit. We need them to play well. We need them to perform at a high level so we can continue to score points.
Is that the same with the receiver corps?
Well, they're healthy. I mean, we've been fortunate there. Those guys have been out there now for a number of weeks, and so you're seeing some improvement and some chemistry with them and Spencer. And by having them out there for a month now in practice has helped us improve as an offense.
Like you called Trey Sterling's recovery kind of unusual. We were there in Boise when you said you thought you were going to get him back this year. What was that recovery like from? What was he recovering from?
Well, he had an injury to his hand, and he had it surgically repaired. The details of it, I'm not sure, and how all that works. But in most cases, that's is a season-ending injury, and for whatever reason, his repair and he's involved with hand specialists, the guys that are best at what they do, and they say he's fine. He can play now.
In the time he's been out, Jason Taylor's kind of gotten to grow into that role. It'll take probably a few weeks for Trey to get his feet in that room. But what do you have when you've got those guys and whatever Jason's gained over those weeks he's played?
Well, we've been fortunate that he's been able to step in and make some plays, and he grows and learns as he goes. He's made mistakes and corrected them, and so it goes back to what we were talking with the offensive line, and unfortunately what we went through at wide receiver early in the year, we were fortunate to make it through that, and that he's now has some experience and has played, and hopefully Trey can get in and get some reps now, and those guys can work together and help keep them fresh.
Mike, you talked over the years about some of your players that, they hardly said a word. They just go practice and they don't say a lot. What's the personality of the Green Twins? We're starting to see them emerge on the field some. What are they like, in as players at practice in the locker room, Blaine and Bryson?
Like the other set of twins that we've had, because they've, in my opinion, because they've grown with each other and they've been active so much in athletics, and they've had each other. They live in that world. But they have personalities and they're fun and all that. But what I've noticed with the ones that we've had, they kind of, it's almost like on my ranch I've got a retired equestrian horse and I have a miniature horse, and that miniature horse is kind of attached to wherever that equestrian horse goes, that miniature horse goes. You don't very seldom see them apart from each other. Well, they're the same way. They kind of start looking around for each other to see where they're at, and they kind of start to get back together. They ride on the plane next to each other. They room together. At practice, if they're not going, they're standing next to each other and talking. So, it's been fun for us to have twins like that on our team. And I think as they start to get caught up, they're young. They're playing a lot for freshmen. That's overwhelming for them. But they're starting to catch their breath. And when that happens, you start to see them show a little more personality. Right now, they're just trying to survive.
Last time you were in Lubbock, Spencer had a rough game. He turned the ball over 5 times that day. Over the course of his career, where do you think his maturity now shows up the most in what he does on Saturdays?
Well, I mean, I think he's made good decisions. At times he throws the ball away and tucks it and runs, and quarterbacks have to learn that we don't have to have a positive play every time we call a play. Sometimes it's okay to end up in 2nd and 10 or throw it away, or sometimes even okay to take a sack. So he's getting a better feel for that, in my opinion, as this year has progressed. But we're also protecting him better. We've protected him better in the last 4 weeks than we have in the first 4 weeks. That's why he's playing better.
Is he a better thrower now than he was when he got here?
Better what?
Thrower?
I mean, he's always been, he's got a strong arm, and he's, pretty accurate, and I would think he has to be better just based on his mental progression of the game. I mean, this game is not easy at this level. I mean, you saw what the freshmen from TCU went through in our game, right? I mean, things start to move fast, and so there's a progression they go through at a young age, and I think he's obviously improved.
Spencer gave credit the other night to the coaching staff as far as that progression, particularly over the last month, decision making. How have you seen that development from the bye week?
Well, I mean, I think he has a really good working relationship with Coach Rattay. They the quarterback position is a little different in a relationship with the coach, and I think they're comfortable working together. And neither one of them hardly talk very much. I mean, Tim's a very quiet person, and Spencer's a very quiet person, and so they have their communication at practice and things, and so I think that's benefited him.
The run game was so good, and we talked a little bit about the offensive line, but one of the things you can't see much from the sidelines, but I noticed Logan Carter, he had to battle back from a back. I mean, that makes me hurt when I think of anybody having a bad back. He made some huge blocks on Saturday.
He's gotten a little better each week. That recovery with the back issue, which it generally starts to affect nerves, and your nerves respond and come back over a period of time. It's not something that happens overnight, and each week he's starting to get a little bit more flexibility and movement. He's still, 80% maybe at the most from where he was, but he gets a little bit more each week, and so that was the first game that he's played where he was productive on the field. He'd been in some games for us, but really wasn't productive. He was just kind of out there. We were trying to find out where he was. He was productive in this game.
What did you think of the kid at Tech that jumped in at quarterback last week?
The
Smith
young
kid?
one?
Yeah, Donovan Smith, I think.
He's a big kid that throws it around. He can run. He's athletic. I mean, he might be 225 pounds, or all I know. He's a pretty big kid. He had, I think now he's got 76 attempts on the year, and 40 of them were the other day. So, he's new and just getting started, but obviously they like him. They put him in there, and he played well.
On Logan Carter's recovery, when you talk about Trey having an unusual recovery, was Logan's unusual? Were you worried he was going to play it all this season?
Well, anytime you're dealing with a back injury, timetables are somewhat unrealistic. There's no telling. And then in a back injury, you're always concerned that could be it. There's just so many moving parts tied into your back and your core, and the back injury can at times be very painful and make you not want to play the game anymore. So yes, I had concerns about that.
Thinking back to 2011, what kind of impact does a conference championship bring to this university as a whole, to bring to recruiting?
What kind of impact does the conference championship bring what?
To your university recruiting as well?
Are you saying to the teams that get in the game? Is that what you're talking about?
Like winning a conference championship.
Oh, winning conference championship. Gosh. If you're a winning organization, it's going to help you in recruiting, period. Now, I will say this, that it's interesting with recruiting now. There's the factors that are involved that play more and are way heavier with young people's decisions over the last 2 to 3 years than maybe just that aspect of it. But I think if you're winning, you certainly have an advantage in recruiting.
Mike, do you have any concerns left with this team at all? Any what? Concerns?
Oh, sure.
What would they be?
This was really the first game that we played at a high level run blocking where we finished blocks. Most of my years here, we were playing at a pretty high level up front, run blocking by game 4 or 5. We just kind of got off going there. We've protected him pretty good the last 3 or 4 games. I had been concerned about that. Defensively, I'm concerned because we've played at a high level for what would be 10 games now. It's hard to continue to play at a high level, so I worry that at some point we could potentially have a letdown. That's just being a coach. Other than that, I'm okay with these guys. It's a good culture. They work hard. They practice hard. I don't need to repeat all that. I've said it in here for a month and a half. Other than that, I really don't have any concerns.
Yeah, and that's got to be I don't know how many years you've reached this point of the season and been at peace with just where the kids are. I take this is a little unique.
It is, and I mean, we're in a time and an age. We'll just look at what's going on. There's been a kind of a trend here recently with athletic directors making changes in programs, and in somebody's opinion, maybe too early, whatever. That for us, me personally, I'm comfortable with where we're at because I see more strength in our organization and culture now than in my 17 years as a head coach. And we have a team right now that when they go out and play on Saturday, it makes a difference who we play. That we know, and the people involved in this organization and our fans and support this program know that if we play well, we can win. I don't care who it is. So for me, that's a plus. And we have enough young players in our program that are coming back, and super seniors that'll be coming back next year. That is going to continue that for quite a while. So it's a good feeling from a coach personally, because now what I need to do is not screw it up. I need to take care of the people that are here. The coaches, all the staffs and work different areas I have in that building over there that are running the thing. Now I just need to keep it moving, and we're in a pretty good place right now. So yes, it is a good feeling.
You've got 2 numbers up in the Ring of Honor now. Who do you think should be next?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I mean, there's a lot of players. You guys know that. I mean, we could sit here and come off with 8 or 10 names that probably deserve to be up there. We got to find out what the formula is to start with. I'm not sure if we know that yet. But at some point, we have a number of guys that could be up there. I mean, I'm just, Leslie O'Neal's one of them. I'm just thinking about him. There's a number of guys. So I would say within the next 5 or 6 years, you'll probably have that thing covered maybe to almost end zone to end zone, because there's 6 or 8 guys that deserve to be up there. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a question that you may not want to go here. You mentioned Leslie O'Neal. I mean, that was the cool thing, was bringing back people who can enjoy it that are alive. But are you for maybe in a group putting like the Fenimores and Armstrongs and maybe having one ceremony and put them up, because some of the guys that belong up there aren't with us anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this should have been done a long time ago. It took 33 years to get Barry's statue out there. Should have been done a long time ago. And there's, you bringing up Fenimore and all that, I didn't want to get into, if you go way back, there's a lot of names that can go up there. And so what we're doing now is, with the new administration, is we're trying to play a little bit of catch up and fast forward some things, and there's only so much we can do at a time. I say we, whoever's involved in this. I guess I'm involved in it, but we'll come up with the plan and start to get some sort of structure on how this happens and where. There's enough qualified players that it doesn't have to be one or two a year, to be honest with you, because we got to play catch up, right? So for that reason, once we come between Chad and if Dr. Shrum wants to be involved, we'll come up with a plan to get caught up on some players or names that need to be up there.
You talked a lot about this season, the importance of bringing former players back. What was it like this past weekend for you and for the program to have not only Barry, but so many former players back, seeing what the program is today?
Well, it means it's busy for me. There was a lot going on for me last week, but that's what has to happen. And so ultimately, we need a director of former players that is in our building over here with us. It's a big job, and if done correctly, it can generate revenue that would be very beneficial to the athletic department and football, and also spreads goodwill. So our players, former players, are just begging to be a part of football, but we've never had anything set up to take care of them. Football is different than any other sport because of the massive amount of numbers. Just since I've been the head coach, we've graduated 379 players. That's just since I've been the head coach. So that's 379 players that would love to be a part of our organization, but we're not really doing it right now because we don't have anybody that's in charge of it. And I know that Chad is going to take care of that and make it happen. But what you're talking about is what I've been talking about for 10 years. And a bunch of them were here. There's so many of them out here, I couldn't even name them all, and I didn't want to try because it wasn't fair. But they're here and they want to be a part. And that's the next step for this team, this culture that we have at Oklahoma State in football, to take it to another level. Just part of what we have to get accomplished.
Tied back to Logan Carter, what's Braden Cassidy's status right now?
Braden Cassidy? He was out there yesterday doing some stuff. Again, we know more on Tuesdays. I mean, it's hard for me to tell you. I'm about 50% on predicting, So we'll find out. Maybe he can do more this week.
How do you quantify what kind of a weapon Tom Hutton has been for you?
Well, he's important. Nobody ever really talks much about snappers, holders, and kickers or punters until they make a mistake. And we've been very fortunate that we have, our deep snapper's fantastic. He's probably good enough to snap in the NFL someday. And nobody notices him because he does everything right all the time. And Tom's been holding for us and doing a great job. And then obviously his target punting has been good. And so it's a big part of what we do. And it doesn't ever get brought up in settings like this until there's an issue. And then it gets brought up. Very important for what he brings to the table. And he gives us the ability to start them inside the 10-yard line a number of times. And there's a percentage out there, whether you start on the 25, the 20, the 15, the 10, or the 5, and what it is to score points or score a touchdown, and it goes down dramatically when you set him back toward the 10-yard line.
When you look at Tom Hutton's progression since he's been here, do you think there was a certain point that was kind of, a turning point for him, or what do you think it is?
It's interesting. It took him really a year to kind of figure out American football, and now his actual kicking fundamentals, he can do that from day one, but it was the ball's different, and then kind of knowing where to kick it on the field and why kick it over here, and some of the things we do. It was interesting to me that he didn't have any idea why we're doing this. And so anything that any of us do in life, if we don't really know why we do it or what our destination is, it's hard to get really good at it. And so once he started to get a feel for American football after about a year, he really improved in understanding how to improve his game as basically a target punter. That's what he is. I mean, even when we're not down on him inside the 10, I mean, he's punting the ball in a certain location, and we're trying to cover that location. That's what he does.
This might seem a little weird to ask, but is Tom Hutton, would you classify him as a football fan? Does he watch other college football games, NFL on Sundays, or does he just play the game?
I don't have any idea. He's married and works another job, and, he's obviously much, much more mature than most young people that are playing this game. I don't know if he watches any of that or not.
And I think back to what Garen asked about team concerns. Are there any concerns that you had going into this season that you no longer have?
But until you said you no longer have, this press conference is not long enough to tell me concerns. I feel good about our physical running backs. We didn't know Jalen Warren, so we weren't sure. But I feel good about where we're at there. Defensively, I knew it was important to stay healthy because of the style of defense we play and what we're trying to accomplish. We need a number of players to rotate in and keep those guys fresh so that our reps don't add up and we get to this part of the season, they're fatigued and we don't practice very well. And unfortunately, that's worked for us. So I had a concern about that, and we've been lucky from that standpoint. Other than that, pretty good. Not much.
What time do you get done tomorrow? 5:30? Get off the practice field?
Tomorrow. We get off, 5:45, something like that.
Will you go in, flip on ESPN just to see where you fall in the rankings, the playoff rankings?
No, I haven't done that. And I know this sounds funny, but I know they have the show on Tuesday. I don't even know what time the show is, but I haven't. I've not ever looked at that. Just because basically it doesn't matter. If I look at it, it's not going to matter. Now I'm going to know because all my buddies I grew up with are going to text me. So it's not like I'm not trying to not know, but I don't really have to go look because everybody's going to tell me what's going on. So
I just don't know where your curiosity is. Are you more curious?
I don't know. However many teams in front of us lost, we usually move up one spot. It's pretty common.
Yeah, I can tell you where it'll be tomorrow night.
There you go.
You'll be 9. You'll be 9.
So we usually did one team lost in front of us, so we usually move up one spot. And that's usually what happens.
You mentioned discounted running backs. What did you think of the way Dominic ran?
He's good. He's
Saturday
very
night?
physical. With Dom, if he gets through the interior and you're a second level guy coming to tackle him, you better buckle up. It is what it is. I don't think that's a secret, and just calling it like it is. I would prefer that he sometimes go away from the other guy and he runs at the other guy on purpose. But that's who he is, and that's what he likes to do. So,
Was that a little bit of personal for him on Saturday, though, considering he thought he was going to go to TCU?
What's interesting? I forgot about that until last night. And then I heard somebody talking about it. But he does that in every game. You see him. He gets in the open field, he starts looking for somebody to run over. But, he's a pretty level-headed guy. Recruiting now is, anybody gets their feelings hurt, recruits or coaches, is wasting their time. You can't ever tell what's going to happen the next day, so.
Just out of curiosity, because you had an official visitor this weekend. Mm-hmm. Back in the day when that kind of stuff started, I don't know if it was you or the staff wasn't real crazy about having a prospect in for an official on a weekend where you play. Because, man, you got your time is booked. Have you gotten more comfortable with doing that?
Well, the reason that it's not easy is because we don't have the amount of time to spend with them. We get them here for 48 hours, and during that time, we feel like that we need to give them everything they need, all the quality information to make a good decision on Oklahoma State. And when it's a game weekend, we're busy, we're working. And so I've always been concerned about it just from the standpoint that they leave and I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with Coach Glass or Coach Dickey or Coach Gundy or whoever, because it's just impossible for us to be able to handle them and spend time with them like we do in the off season. But it's a part of the new wave, and young men want to be on a campus. Some of them do want to be on a campus on a game weekend, and so we do the best we can to make it work. And there's not as much of a personal touch because there's just not time, individual time.
Spoken before about Malcolm and his recruitment, but what do you remember about when he first came on your radar and seeing him play Western?
Malcolm Rodriguez? Well, he wasn't recruited. I mean, he claims that Wyoming recruited him. I don't. I didn't even know if Wyoming did, to be honest with you. So when we found out about him and being a four sport guy and all that, and then watched him on tape, we offered him and tried to get him ASAP. Just based on most people that are good at 3 or 4 things like he is at a really high level are very superior athletes, and they also can think really fast. that's a sign of a good football player. A guy can think fast and has superior athletic ability. There's not a lot of people running around that can be a multiple state champion wrestler, play shortstop in baseball at a level to get drafted, be a quarterback on a team that went 33-1 over his career without being very savvy up here.
Can you consider where he was then and the other night goes to the top 5 in program history and tackles? What had to transpire between there for him to get there?
I mean, he just is who he is. He plays hard. He loves to play the game. He's competitive. He's tough. He just, what you see out there is just really kind of who he is. That's a big time accomplishment. Was it almost 400 tackles or something? So I told him if he had a couple more years, he could break the record. But it was pretty special for him. Good for a local guy.